More than 1,000 Russian athletes are now implicated in doping, how social media is harming our children, and millions more in parking fines for cancels. You're watching 5 News Tonight. The London Olympics have been branded the most drugged ever. Scores of Russian athletes competed illegally, and their government helped them do it.
The Russian Olympic team corrupted the London Games on an unprecedented scale.
Over 50 children a day are admitted to hospital because of self-harming, and it's social media that is fueling the rise. And enough to drive you mad, as the amount of money councils make from parking fines rises by £60 million. Also tonight, how the real magic of Disney helped unlock the world of one autistic boy. I'll be talking to Owen Susskind and his mum about learning to communicate using the dialogue, and how their story is now a movie too. Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbett. Russia has been accused of corrupting the 2012 London Olympics on an unprecedented scale by allowing its athletes to take performance-enhancing drugs. An extraordinary report by the World Anti-Doping Agency has revealed the true extent of a programme that it says was run by the country's government. More than 1,000 sportsmen and women are alleged to have taken banned substances, with their cheating then covered up by Russian officials. As Simon Weiger reports now, it says the deception has been going on for years.
We knew it was bad. Today we got to know the detail.
Over 1,000 Russian athletes competing in summer, winter, and Paralympic sport. The desire to win medals superseded their collective moral and ethical compass. The Russian Olympic team corrupted the London Games on an unprecedented scale.
The McLaren report into state-sponsored doping details how positive samples were switched and how they were doctored with salt and coffee.
So the percentage breakdown between international federations is 84% of the summer sports and 16% are winter sports.
Former British runner Andrew Steele is one of the victims. At the 2008 Olympics, the 400 metres relay team was beaten to bronze by the Russians, who've only recently been disqualified.
People have talked about, what about the sponsorship money you could have gotten, or the prize money, etc. Actually, none of that matters. What really matters is, in my athletic career, I had very few moments of satisfaction, actually, and that was the closest I got to feeling, oh, I did well here. We actually won something from this, and I didn't get to experience it. And money can't buy that. So, that's the real shame, that I missed out on that one moment of satisfaction.
The first McLaren report in the summer led to a total ban from the Rio Olympics for Russia's athletics team. It sparked indignant outrage in Russia, but now the level of espionage is laid bare. Tonight, the International Olympic Committee has said all Russian samples from London 2012 and Sochi 2014 will be retested. At the 2011 World Championships, Jessica Ennis-Hill was cheated out of gold by Russian athlete Tatiana Chernova. She had her suspicions, and so did her coach, Tony Minicello. Today he told me it's clear that the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, needs greater funding.
The Russian laboratory, as a direct response to WADA's more stringent guidelines, they came up with this system, and this is how they operated. So if it's Russia doing it, is it inconceivable that maybe other countries are operating similar systems? Genuinely, I don't know.
The magic of London 2012 has been slightly tarnished. The good news is that of the 15 implicated medal winners, 10 have now been disqualified. Simon Weiger, 5 News.
Well, joining me now from Loughborough is Andy Brown from the Sports Integrity Initiative, an independent organisation which monitors ethics in sport. And Andy, it seems that ethics in sport are probably at an all-time low these days.
It would seem so. I mean, as McLaren said in his summary, basically this is an unprecedented sort of attack on the integrity of sport. The number of athletes and the methodology used just shows what levels people go to in order to win.
And you, as part of your job, obviously speak to athletes who genuinely have integrity, ones who would have competed in fair terms at London 2012. How do you think they must be feeling now after what we all remember as being a fantastic event?
Well, I think they'll have every reason to feel absolutely gutted, especially ones that have lost out on medals. And I suppose it's now up to the international federations to sort of look into which athletes, the information that WADA's provided, and which athletes have benefited and need to have sanctions pursued against them.
What are the main drivers for athletes cheating on this scale? Is it national pride? Is it to make money? What is it?
Well, I mean, the McLaren report was specific in identifying a sort of state system, a state-manipulated system, which I have to say has been denied today by the Russian Ministry of Sport again. It said that, basically there was no state doping system despite the evidence. But given that it's a state system, it's the state that's looking to sort of benefit from this. With individual athletes, it's kind of different. And we kind of have a culture in sport at the moment where anything that it takes in order to win a medal is often what's pushed towards athletes, and there's pressure on them from sponsors, financial backers, etc., to win. So a lot of athletes are under an immense amount of pressure, and to cross the line from sort of taking legal supplements into taking illegal drugs is actually, for many, a kind of small step to take. And I mean, that's where WADA and organisations such as WADA come in order to educate athletes about the differences between cheating and supplementation.
OK. Andy, many thanks indeed for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Now, police investigating allegations of widespread sexual abuse in football. So they've identified 83 potential suspects involving 98 clubs at all levels of the game. The National Police Chiefs Council say victims were aged between 7 and 20 years old at the time of the abuse, while calls from new victims and people offering information are coming in all the time, they say. Dominic Reynolds has more.
It began with a decision from this man to talk about what happened when he was a young footballer. And in the 3 weeks since Andy Woodward went public, the allegations have accumulated fast. Football abuse investigations now involve nearly 100 clubs. And this is still only getting started, so says Pete Saunders, who survived abuse and now campaigns against it.
I think what we've seen so far is still just, sadly, the tip of a very large iceberg. And I think, given that we are a nation obsessed with soccer, I think it was only a matter of time before these revelations came out. I've long been aware that there are problems with this issue in not just soccer, but all sports, wherever there are children.
We now know that the investigations into abuse in football are looking at 83 potential suspects at 98 different clubs. The clubs in question stretch across all tiers of football from amateur to the top flight, and the alleged victims range in age from 7 to 20 years old. The FA has launched an internal review, and the Premier League has written to parents of young players. And for those who understand the world of abuse, just talking about it will prevent it.
The one thing that abusers of all kinds do not want is they do not want the likes of me as a survivor, or Andy Woodward, Paul Stewart, all the rest of them. They do not want people speaking out because it shines a spotlight on their murky, murky world.
Asking difficult questions about the past. It's had to happen in broadcasting, in church, and in our nation's parliament. Our national game is the latest institution in the spotlight, but will it be the last? Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
The mother of 2 young boys who were mauled by a dog has been praised for trying to stop the attack. 4-month-old Archie Joe Darby was killed and his brother Daniel J was seriously injured when the Staffordshire Bull Terrier attacked them in their home in Essex in October. An inquest heard their mother Jade tried desperately to fight the dog away, but it pulled Archie from her arms. The driver of a bin lorry that crashed in Glasgow in 2010, killing 6 people, will not face private prosecution. Harry Clark blacked out behind the wheel of the vehicle after lying about his health to employers. Criminal charges were never brought against him, and now judges have rejected a private case brought by victims' relatives. The Duke of York says there is no truth in the rumours of a rift between him and the Prince of Wales over the future roles of his daughters. In a rare public statement, Prince Andrew denied asking for future husbands of Eugenie and Beatrice to have titles. For almost all young people these days, social media is of course an integral part of their everyday lives. But a charity is warning that it's causing many to be deeply unhappy and is leading to a big rise in self-harming. The NSPCC says in the past year in England and Wales, nearly 19,000 children were admitted to hospital after self-harming. That's the equivalent of 50 every single day, as Peter Lane explains.
Sometimes it's that the physical pain you're creating, it's bad, but it's not compared to the emotional pain you're feeling and the things that are going on in your mind that you really can't deal with.
In her teens, Bethany struggled to cope with her emotions, suffered from stress and began to self-harm. She kept it secret for a while, but was eventually hospitalised and believes that saved her life.
For me, before long, it became almost like an addiction, so it was feeling I had to do it or wasn't able to not do it. Even when I wanted to be stopping, it was really difficult. I wouldn't be here without that help and support from hospital and professionals and family and friends, and it was definitely needed.
Bethany's story is not unique. Figures show a significant rise in the number of children and young people admitted to hospital in England and Wales for self-harm.
What we're seeing is young people being hospitalised, so not young people just attending A&E, which means their self-harm has to be quite prolific actually for them to be hospitalised because of it, and that is really, really concerning for us, definitely as a charity.
It's thought a big part here is played by social media, that ever-growing pressure on young people to fit in, be popular and attain a certain image, and of course the impact of online bullying through the same sites.
A lot of the spike in self-harm cases can be laid at the door of social media, partly because it's just so omnipresent 24/7, and kids and young people can access that in the palm of their hand on their phones or in their bedroom, and it's very hard to escape from it. But at the same time, we have to recognise that 10 years ago they wouldn't have had the weight of this information. There's just so much coming at them that they almost don't know where to turn.
I have relapses, I think about it. It's an ongoing struggle, but it's definitely something that you can move on from, and it's so worth it when you get to a point where you are living life not controlled by this need to hurt yourself.
The message from Bethany is clear: you're not alone and you can get help. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Still to come on 5 News tonight. How a record rise in parking fine revenue is driving people mad.
It's ridiculous. Where's all the money gone? Where is it?
How do you feel about that?
Not very good, because it doesn't go back into our society, does it?
Now we meet the very special star of a new movie about how animated films helped unlock his autism. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Now, as many as 10,000 children from families who are on low incomes could be offered a free place to study at a private school. This new plan will be similar to the Assisted Places scheme that was set up by the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher back in the 80s. It would involve schools and the government covering the extra costs. But as Layla Hayes reports, some say it doesn't really go far enough.
It costs around £16,000 a year to come to Ashford School in Kent. But like many independent schools, it offers bursaries and scholarships. 11-year-old Sienna Bates is here on a sports scholarship and is highly impressed by the facilities.
We do water polo, swimming, running, hockey, which we're doing now, netball, which we're soon doing, but I've played it before. It's really fun. And I think we're doing rounders and cricket, pentathlon, shooting, because they do shooting as well. Just things like that.
17-year-old Rebecca Smelt receives a bursary, which means her fees are partially funded.
Personally, I wouldn't be able to come here without a bursary, and so I really think it's given me great opportunities that I wouldn't get elsewhere. The experiences that I've had here, I would want anyone else to have, and I think everyone deserves them.
There are currently just over 485,000 pupils in independent schools in England. The Independent Schools Council now propose taking a further 10,000 means-tested pupils, part paid for by the government. But critics say this is a tiny amount and only covers around 2% of the current private pupil population. The proposal comes as private schools face a threat to their charitable status, But here at Ashford, they say they happily share facilities with the state sector.
We had a concert here last night, and many of those participating were from local state schools. Throughout the week, we have state primary schools coming to us to use our facilities, such as our swimming pool. I think we work very positively with a number of our neighbouring schools.
Scholarships and bursaries are welcome, but it's hoped that if more free places are offered, even more families will benefit from schools like this. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
Well, with me now in the studio are Sian Griffiths, Education Editor of the Sunday Times, and Mike Buchanan, Head Teacher of Ashford School that Layla visited in her report there. He's also the Chairman of the Headmasters and Headmistresses Conference. Good evening to you both. Sian, we've seen how well it seems to be working in Mike's school in Ashford. Why shouldn't it be expanded?
Well, this is actually a proposal by the private schools, to create 10,000 more places. But these are not free places. These are places that are paid for by the taxpayer.
Are they doing it to assuage their guilt in some way, do you think?
Well, I think the government has actually asked them to do more to justify their charitable status. There's a green paper out, and this is the private school's response to the green paper. So the government has said, you get tax breaks which are worth millions. You're not exactly charities. Can you do a bit more to help out state schools and state school pupils? And this terrible tale that we have of 1 in 5 pupils who come out of our schools with very few qualifications and find it very difficult to get good jobs. And I think what they want the private schools to do, which educate 7% of the population and take about 50% of the top university places, they want private schools to do more to help out the state school kids.
We'll come back to that point. And it's a fair one, though, isn't it, Mike, that you operate like charities, but you're still making money. And as we heard there, you're charging £16,000 a year to parents of children to come to your school. What are they going to think if others are being part-funded by the government?
So let's be really clear. This proposal is aimed at the lower income families in England, and it's about providing transformative experiences for those children. It's all about social mobility. Now, as you saw in the piece, there are children in my school who fall into that category already. About a third of the children in independent schools in this country are on some form of assisted place. And that is making a real difference to them. And Sian is simply wrong to suggest that charities are not doing their charitable bit.
Just briefly, so at your school, you've got the kids of parents who can afford it, who are going to be upper middle class or higher. You've got kids who really can't afford it, who are going to be low income. What about the majority in the middle? What chance do they get to get this special treatment?
Matt, I don't accept your assertion that you're dividing the children up into those social economic bands. I have children from all sorts of backgrounds at my school, and the fact is most independent schools in this country also have children from all sorts of backgrounds. And the parents in my school not only want the best for their children, they want the best for children generally, and that's at the really heart of this proposal. It's a free place for parents. It's no more cost to the taxpayer. In fact, it will save the taxpayer money. We're talking about up to 10,000 places a year. That's the equivalent of 10 new schools, year after year after year.
So if it does, Sian, save the taxpayer money, then it's a win-win, isn't it? That money can then be spent on improving the state education system.
I don't quite understand how it saves the taxpayer money. The taxpayer is going to pay £5,500 for each of these children to be educated in a private school.
Which is what it costs to educate them in a state school.
Well, why not educate them in a state school? I mean, I think what the government would like to see the private schools doing is actually sponsoring new state schools, helping set up new state schools, maybe sending some of their best teachers, they have great teachers in maths and science, some of the private schools, sending them to state schools where there are no teachers in these subjects with good qualifications.
Just briefly, Mike, to finish, wouldn't it be better to address things at the other end, the reasons why kids who go to fee-paying schools do so well afterwards through the cliques and the social networks that occur?
They do well because of the nature of the education they get.
And not who they know.
And Sian is simply wrong. She hasn't even seen our proposals in full. She's talking about one element of the proposals because the proposals haven't been submitted yet. Okay. And the two other tenets of those proposals are exactly what Sian's talking about. In other words, creating new schools with partners in areas that are of need.
Mike, Sian, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you. Now, in the past year, England's local authorities raked in more than £750 million from parking fines. Yes, you heard right. That's a rise of 60 million in just a year, and it's been put down to greater competition for spaces. Councils say the cash is reinvested, but as Ruth Liptrot reports, there's little consolation to those who've been caught out.
Nowadays, you can spend as much parking your car as you do running it, and if you get a ticket, you're seriously out of pocket. For councils, though, parking charges and fines mean big bucks. Last year alone, councils in England made £756 million in profit from charging people to park. London generated the most money with almost 56 million made. Brighton and Hove made just over 20 million, while Nottingham generated just over 13.5 million in profit. By law, the money made has to be reinvested into improving transport, but these motorists are unimpressed.
Well, that's ridiculous. Where's all the money gone? Where is it?
I'm not shocked.
How do you feel about that?
Not very good, because it doesn't go back into our society, does it?
Well, as a motorist, it's tough, but it seems like we are the ones that are paying for everything, really.
But according to the Local Government Association, £750 million is not enough to fix what needs to be done.
It sounds like a huge number, but it's actually tiny in comparison to the amount of money needed to get our roads back into proper condition. That's £12 billion, So, it's a big number, but it's not the biggest number.
Some of the money in that pot has come from this guy who found that parking restrictions on display were changed after he'd parked his car. Yep, it's hard to make out, but the CCTV shows a traffic warden changing the signing, then giving him a ticket. Joseph was given a £65 fine and had to pay £200 to get his car back after it was towed.
You start questioning your own self. Was that sign there when I parked there saying June, July? Could someone really change a sign? And I wondered perhaps if it was another driver who'd maybe picked up a sign innocently, but to know it was the actual civil enforcement officer changing it himself for their own favour of the council, for them to pocket stuff out of it, it's disgusting, to be honest.
Joseph has yet to get his money back, even though an independent tribunal ruled that Newham Council were in the wrong. But now when he parks, he takes a photo of the restrictions, just in case. Ruth Liptrot, 5 News.
Yeah, that's what I'd do. Now, Owen Suskind stopped talking when he was just 3 years old. He was diagnosed with autism, and his parents were told that he might never even speak again. 4 years later, though, they unlocked the secret to communicating with him using the language of his favourite animated movies. Owen is now 25, and he's the star of his own movie, Life Animated. A bit earlier on, I met him and his mum Cornelia, but first, let's watch a clip from the film.
I grab the puppet, I pull it up to my elbow, and I begin to crawl across the rug as quietly as I can. And Owen turns to the puppet like he's bumping into an old friend. I say to him,
Owen, how does it feel to be you?
And I said, not good, because I don't have any friends.
Now I'm under the bedspread, and I just bite down hard. Just say to myself, stay in character.
Owen, Cornelia, it's lovely to have you here with me. Thanks so much for coming in. The first question, Owen, has to be, what's it like now being an animated hero yourself in a movie?
Feels good and wonderful.
What's it like watching it back?
Amazed.
Just seen the clip of your dad there talking.
Amazed.
And Cornelia, I know you think the same thing, but let's go back to the start when this all happened, and we just heard Owen's dad there describing that feeling. It must have felt like a miracle.
It was really extraordinary because we, after the diagnosis and Owen's loss of speech and processing difficulty and eye contact, as a parent, you start to wonder whether, you're ever going to hear their voice again. And to have Owen connect with Ron and through the puppet was just extraordinary. Really nothing we had any expectation of.
Owen, what do you remember of that moment?
Do you remember, Owen?
Yes, I do.
What can you remember? Can you remember how you felt when your dad started talking to you?
So happy again. Yeah.
Because you must have felt really frustrated up to that point, not being able to talk to your mum and dad.
Yeah.
Owen, remember you said that when the autism hit, it sounded as though Dad and I were just speaking gibberish, that it didn't make any sense to you.
Yeah.
So suddenly, your dad using these voices from your favourite Disney movies, it sounded clear, you could understand again.
Right.
Which, Cornelia, it's incredible because all the experts at the time told you that this was a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at that time, remember it was 1993, 94, and so much less was really known about autism than we know today. And the thought was that it was really echolalia, and it was, in a way, echolalia, but it was productive echolalia.
Describe what
so
echolalia
is the repeating of language that someone on the spectrum hears. And they might repeat just one little bit of a line over and over and over again. But what we realized was that line had significance, and that he was latching onto that for a reason. And it's very difficult when experts and doctors are telling you, you know, don't get your hopes up, move on. And we just felt in our gut that there was something there.
And we can see Owen has come such a long way now. You're 25, and and you can speak normally, and you can communicate. And
yes, I can.
Do you still like watching Disney movies, though?
Of course.
Yeah. What are your favourites?
All of them all.
All of them.
What are the top 4?
Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King.
Is The Lion King pretty much your favourite?
Yep, one of them.
Great songs.
Yep.
Do you sing the songs?
Yes, I do.
But you do the impressions of the voices.
Yes, I do.
So are you going to do as an impression now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, which one do you want to do?
Want to do one from The Lion King?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Oh, young master, one day you will be king. Then you can chase all those stupid mangy poachers from dawn until dusk.
This sounds like an English accent. I think that's a very good English accent.
It's Rowan Atkinson's voice as Zazu.
That's a great Rowan Atkinson. I hope he's watching, because I'm sure he'd be very pleased with that. Cornelia, just to finish, you must have to pinch yourselves that this has now been made into a movie, and here you are, coming over from your home near Boston to the UK to talk about it.
It's just incredible. I mean, the whole, you know, the full circle of Owen connecting through Disney characters, and then Owen's story in being made into a film. It's just, you know, something we could never have imagined.
Well, look, I know you've got to go off to a special event this evening, especially for that, so do enjoy that and keep up those impressions. That was really good. Rowan Atkinson would be very impressed.
Yes.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Now, just before we go, doctors in California have successfully managed to separate 2-year-old conjoined twin girls. Erica and Eva Sandoval were joined at the abdomen and the chest. The surgery involved at least 50 doctors. It took 18 hours, but the girls are now recovering and doing far better than expected. That's it from us. Chris Page has the weather, and the fantastic Sangeeta Candola is here with updates throughout the evening. Have a good one. Bye-bye for now.